Started soon. Okay, set work on. Hello. Hi there. How's everyone doing on this cold Thursday evening? We're at Somerset House.
Shut the window a bit.
Yeah, it's a bit, and the fan as well. When we turn that on.
No, it's like a oven.
Great. How's everyone doing on this? As I'm sure you've probably already noticed, we have a veritable cornucopia of random plastic things, and all of these plastic things are extremely important to various stages of developing these things. Audio only. There we go. Aha, we're on. Okay.
Does it sound okay, Chris?
Yeah. Should we try that again?
Yeah. Try.
Hello.
Camera.
Awesome. No, we're good. We're good. Great. Okay, let's try that all over again. Hey there. We're in Somerset House at the Makerversity. We're going to be talking about what it took to manufacture Beast of Balance. And then to my right is the man who did more or less all of that, I would think, with a sort of team effort, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's a team effort. Yeah. So we're going to talk for half an hour, a little bit more maybe, about going from the first prototype pieces, which are somewhere on this table.
They're buried underneath now at this point.
So going from that to the thing that hopefully you'll play with if you have a copy of the game. So it's been quite a long journey, and there's lots of interesting stuff that I'd really like to share with people. So yeah, we're just going to have a chat. If anyone has any questions, then apart from my wife, who she'll ignore. If anyone has any questions, then we'll obviously do our best to answer them. But yeah, so
well, I've got a couple of questions to sort of begin with.
Fire away.
A lot of the stuff that I've been doing this week has just been documenting the prototyping process. So from you can probably tell just by looking at all the different bits and pieces on the stack in front of us that there was a process involved there. So I don't know, just from your eye line right now, what is the earliest piece that you can sort of pick out?
Well, okay, so I think the earliest ones were actually before my time, slightly before I...
Right, okay.
So there was a version of the game that was actually, let's see, so...
There's a lot of the blocks still have their,
so we have a block.
their tags on them. Yeah.
We have another block here that says Mammalia. And probably, I'd imagine, George, who's over there,
he wants to
and George,
there he is.
So I'd imagine George, probably maybe on a later one of these, can talk about the game at this point.
Yeah.
But when I came to it, it was quite rudimentary, very abstract, and I think as close to
this was one of the pieces as well.
Yeah, that was, so this was a cantilever. I'm trying to find one of the animals. We really should have segmented these a bit better.
Here we go. There's one.
So there were creatures in the game, but they were basically just very, very, very low poly games. There's actually an old tag on the bottom of it. So George and Alex and Chris and Lyle.
Yeah, I think I was going to
slightly later. So this was the first stage that they were working at, and then I guess for whatever reason they wanted to evolve that style a little bit. So then I started to get involved, and we went from this kind of thing to that's a big
that's a jump, I would imagine.
That's a jump. This is a bird.
Oh, no, I meant a jump from. That looks obviously more stylized, and you're getting.
Oh no, this was the same.
Is that the same?
This wasn't me either. No, this
right. Okay, cool.
This is a tiny little bird.
Yeah, that's the one I've seen.
That's a little bird there. You can see that guy.
Yeah.
By the way, if the sound isn't any good, then somebody type.
Just let us know.
So when I came on, I wanted to, or we collectively wanted to refine the style slightly, make it more. At the time, we were going for a very super sleek, very designery, very angular, super low poly design, but slightly more recognizable than this level. So what we had, so then very quickly we ended up with these guys.
Yeah, the pointy
pointy, and this is still, I think, this is still my favorite piece. So this was the evolution of the sea creature. It's kind of supposed to be a slightly generic looking, well, it's a fish, obviously.
Yeah.
It could be many different types of fish. And it had a lovely, like, burnished bronze coating.
And then I'm guessing that this eagle was part of the same sort of iteration there. As
Again,
well.
like, so that is generic air creature.
Sure.
So we had here's that's half of him. So for each of the creatures, here's a good one. So there was is there a small one of these?
There was one.
Well, anyway, there was a small, a medium, and a large version of the same creatures, and then in the game they would have, the larger they were, the more power they have, which is something that's still carried over now.
Yeah, I didn't actually realize it because I've been seeing a bunch of different size ones. I didn't realize that was actually part of the game.
Yeah, exactly. So this guy, he was the land creature, kind of like a half elephant, half, I guess, a bear type thing. So he became bear.
So you designed. So actually, one of my other questions was sort of what you designed. You would do the 3D model and then you would print it all.
Yes.
And then, so you actually would come up with these sort of archetypal creatures.
Yeah.
So what was that process like when you were picking the features and because that's super interesting to sort of pare it down to its most basic form, I guess.
At the time, we were trying to make objects that were they were recognizable, but they didn't have too much individual character. So we wanted this to be this is the land creature. We wanted it to be recognizable as a land creature, 4 legs, but the idea is when you put it into the game, it would become a particular type of land creature. So this was a toad. This was like a kind of artifact that would turn into something else when it's in the game. So like a kind of egg, if you like. So to start with, at this stage, it was really just trying to come up with objects that looked nice and that were interesting to stack. This was actually, so I'm jumping around here, but through the whole process, from where we started out all the way to where we ended up, when I came on board, at the start, there were maybe 2 things that had to be balanced. There was stackability, and there was aesthetics. And then there were extra ones, the extra factors that came into the mix when we got further along the line, like manufacturability as well, and durability. But at the time, it was what looked good and what would be fun to stack. So with all of these, even back to this guy is, the fish was designed to have multiple different ways of stacking that would all lend different, it's been through the walls as well. But they were all designed to have easier ways to play them and then harder ways to play them.
And that carries through definitely into the sort of finalized pieces as well, because particularly whenever I see my friends playing the game, the discovery that they can put bear sideways and they can put the eagle sort of next to that, and there's all these different sort of bits of the creature to discover, I think.
Sure.
That's a huge part of the gameplay.
Yeah, of course. And it always kills me when when I see people using them in ways that are unexpected.
Yeah.
That I've put in, but people never usually do them. So the bear, and I don't think I can do this while I'm holding it.
I mean, I've not
Where
actually
he
seen that
sits,
before.
he can sit right on his haunches. See that like that. This is kind of based around the fact that the game we're shipping is cooperative, but then the idea of having modes where maybe you don't want to be nice in the way that you're trying to screw over the other people in the future, maybe. This gives us a little bit of leeway in building that kind of.
But they're really sort of flexible versatile pieces.
Right. But to get to this, so to carry on the story, so. And at the time, the game, and again, George will probably go into this in one of these, but the game was, there was a lot of, it had quite a high cognitive load. There was a lot going on, and it was very abstract. Everything was super nice, clean shapes. And so
when you say there's a lot going on, is there sort of a lot of points, sort of things to keep track of?
Yeah, you were really balancing ecosystems in the game, but it didn't have any of the graphic style. Some of the older viewers in there who followed us for a while would probably have seen the older stuff.
Sure.
And I think we've been putting some up on Twitter the last few days. It was very, very abstract, really, really beautiful. And I do miss it to a degree, but it wasn't particularly friendly to approach. It was quite people approached it with a type of game that was different to a stacking game, which is the one that we have, which is quite a low barrier of entry type of game, right? So we were looking at the time. We were looking for ways of softening the game, softening the style, opening up more ways that people could play with the pieces.
I guess quite literally as well, because this guy's pretty pointy.
Right.
Pointy.
Yeah. So this is an interesting point that we should probably go on to, which is manufacturability. Yeah, so that's really important. So from this, I've actually got them here. So the idea was to try and inject some personality into these pieces. So we switched from having here we go. So a smaller version and a larger version of the same creature, exactly the same design, which, it's fine, but it's not the most visually exciting thing. So we decided, let's make them actual creatures. Let's make them actual recognizable animals. Process of trying to figure out which creatures should be. I can see this. This is terrible. This is hard. This is a failed print. So originally, Bear was going to be some kind of, I think it was a panther.
It looks like it's about to pounce.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So he's broken at the top here, but you can kind of get the idea. There's a little panther head. It may even have been a lion.
On the topic of failed, I think, is this a failed 2?
That's a failed 2. Yeah, that's a failed 2. There's lots of failures in it. Very good old 3D printing. So with the bear, we settled on a shape that was probably this one. Is probably the next iteration. So you can see, whoops, it's visually quite similar to how the bear is now, but he's a chunky fellow, that's for sure. This is current bear, but even so, you can kind of see the progression there. So I'd say every piece went through maybe 6 or 7 or 8 or more different iterations.
I mean, maybe just to pick one that I can actually see. The octopus went through a pretty massive as well, didn't
he? The biggest. And I wonder if we've got all of the stages here. So let's hang on a second. So
yeah, well, I can see this guy as well.
That's the crab. Because could you grab one of the, the old octopus? I think there's one on the right hand side. The octopus. There's a white octopus that's probably easier to find. Very easy to see.
Just dig through the history.
Oh, here we go. All right. Not that one.
That flat one.
Okay, bring him over. So this is the first octopus that I designed. Yeah. Okay. This one's looking quite angry. We saved that one.
I turned that one in.
And so too difficult to play. So from there,
what was the issue? Is there's just no good way to balance him. If you put him down, he's just going to tumble over.
Yeah, he just, and also he didn't really fit with the rest of the style of the rest of the piece. Sure. We should actually come to the kind of geometric rules behind it.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
Okay, so octopus then became this one, which some people will have seen, because he was. This one was in our Kickstarter campaign. So a lot of people called him a lampshade, which I didn't really like too much.
He looks a bit grumpy as well. He's got very
He's got a very grumpy face there. So very late in the day, actually, very late in the day, after the Kickstarter campaign, I took a week and I redesigned him. And he so quickly he became, I'll show you, this is the one that Chris was showing. Is the disco version of Octopus. So Octopus decorated by Chris. It's very good. Now covered in glitter. So decided to go back to square one, and very quickly we had new Octopus, which is very similar to the one in the box, and I'm much more happy with him.
Have we got a question? What does that say?
No, that's just. Oh, don't worry about that. Okay. Yeah. So yes, I think. Let's see what else we've got here.
Well, one question that was very explicitly asked was the sort of, because we tweeted out earlier this week a nice sort of 3D render of our currently 3D printing another copy of the crab.
Yeah.
How come? Obviously, we talked a lot about gameplay sort of in an abstract way. What was the deciding factor that cut crab out of the game? Was it basically deciding between crab and octopus, or where does this guy fit in with the sort of octopus?
Yeah.
Timeline?
So he was designed at the same time. We've actually got a few different ones that have never seen the light of day.
You mean these types, these prototypes?
Yeah. They're not very good, but they do exist. The thing with crab was, I think it was a visual style thing. I really like crab. He's really nice. If you look at the our Instagram feed, you'll see a little render of him, and he's really nice and friendly. But he doesn't really. He looks a bit too
cartoonish, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of slightly SpongeBob-y, which is fine, but it doesn't fit with our game. So he got shelved quite late on in favour of Octopus. I mean, the other thing is as well, the reason Octopus is great is because he has lots of different play him, especially with his tentacles. So think about if every block has exactly the same different number of ways and styles they can be played, it's not a particularly interesting game. So having one that might be favourable in situation, and then maybe another that's better in another situation, that gives you flexibility.
On that note, what is the secretly most complicated beast, do you think? Who's the most sort of playable in a bunch of different ways?
Oh, they all have.
They all have their own little secret tricks, don't they?
They do. The bigger ones certainly have harder angles to play. Yeah, I mean,
I guess there's
find
one
that
against
out.
we went through the way. Cool.
Yeah.
Can I just ask as well, what are these blob things here? What are these?
Okay, so right. So the story goes. So we had a moment about 3D printing. So 3D printing is fantastic. Love it to bits. We wouldn't be here without it. Pretty much everything on this table has been 3D printed and then hand sanded and hand painted. It's a lovely process. It lets you do things that are totally impossible to do in other ways, which actually can be a blessing and a curse, which I'll mention in a bit. But one of the downsides with 3D printing is it's very slow. So doing it at a decent quality, a very decent quality, something like this, something like the crab on our machines would take maybe, at a very decent quality, maybe about 8 hours.
And the quality means that it's harder to see the layers, because I can see
Yeah.
with this one, it's obviously quite layered.
Exactly right.
So the quality is basically just the smoothness of the
Right.
surface,
And then if you do something quickly, you don't get very nice lines, which is very important for us.
Mm.
And then you have to spend an awful long time sanding it
Sure.
to get them off. So to make one prototype is great for 3D printing. To make 5 prototypes takes a bit longer. If you need to make 10 prototypes,
That's more than a week.
especially when you're talking about 24, 25, 26 pieces. It's huge, and each piece is 2 halves, and the 2 halves have to fit together. So if you don't clean them up properly, they won't fit together.
Right.
So when we were ramping up for the Kickstarter,
Actually, this half of equal, right?
that's
That's
yes,
half
but that's a
equal.
different process. Here we go. So
Okay. Cool.
let me hold this up to the camera. So this is an eagle print, half of an eagle, and if you look inside, if you can see inside, all of that rubbish needs to come out before it's going to fit together. All of this nonsense in here. So that's just a time-consuming process. So when we were doing the Kickstarter, we wanted to get sets out to people to review, to kind of build us some press. And all of a sudden, I think we were trying to make 10 sets. 10 sets of 24 pieces, plus the platforms, was an awful lot of 3D printing. There wasn't enough time. So that's where this comes in. So a really good mid-ground between 3D printing and mass manufacture is resin casting. And our resin casting,
I can actually see a little guy.
yeah. So if anyone has any plastic jewelry, perhaps, then it's probably been made by a similar process. So what you do is you take your where are we? Let's use this one. So let's say we 3D printed this octopus, and we sanded it, and we filled in all the gaps, and it looks beautiful. The next thing you do is you build a mold around it, and you pour silicone over the top. And you do it in 2 halves, and then you end up with, this one's fine. So you end up with a block like this. And inside the block
Oh, cool. So that's the actual
is a
mold.
hollow.
Nice.
And the hollow, you can kind of see there, this one is half of warthog, actually. You see his tusks. So then what you do is you get this special resin, it comes in 2 halves, and you mix it together, put some color in it, and then you pour it in the top, and you wait for it to dry, and then you take the 2 halves out, and then you get a lovely part comes out.
So in that case, you only need to 3D print one,
Right.
and then you can sort of make the other ones in a much
Yeah,
quicker.
exactly right. And then where's that eagle that you picked up? Here,
This guy.
that's a bit of a bad one, actually. So what you get, so many pieces. Oh, hey, here's another. That's a really old bear.
Could be a good one for this.
Oh, here we go. Right. So this is a. This
That
is
looks
a
like
shark.
quite far down the line as well, shark, right?
Shark.
That's
Yeah.
pretty
This
much-
this
that's the
is.
final shark.
Well,
More or
no.
less.
Actually, so after the Kickstarter, some pieces changed a lot, like the octopus.
Yeah,
Most of them didn't change a huge amount, but they still. There was a lot of work that had to be done to them to get them for the next step. So, but for this step, what you had. Yeah, here's a shot. So this has been resin cast. And resin is a lovely material. There's lots of different types, and it colors really well, and it's nice and solid. But the problem is, it doesn't.
There we go.
It's not particularly hard wearing. And when you're making a game about things that fall off towers and bounce around the floor, then you need them to be strong. So
I guess that segues pretty nicely into sort of manufacturing decisions and sort of like picking what's made of what, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So Yeah, so resin casting is great for, if anyone out there is doing like small runs of 3D printed things and they're thinking about how to move into slightly bigger runs, resin casting is fantastic. We're doing some of that for the handmade set, which I'm looking forward to seeing. But yeah, to answer your question, so the next step, so you might have the most beautiful 3D printed shape in the world, and you may have been able to make some perfect copies with, but then if you're gonna get it made in plastic, in like something that can be sold in shops, then all of a sudden, all of your criteria change. Actually quite a similar process to this, but it's not nice, flexible silicone. It's like strong steel.
Yeah, I mean, you can look on our Twitter feed as well. It's the injection molding stuff.
Yeah.
They're coming off of, you know, pretty like hardcore machinery. There's no flexibility there at all.
Yeah, definitely. So the next step was to take the designs that we had, and basically I had to rebuild them from the ground up, removing all of the little details that meant that it wouldn't work with injection molding.
So what kind of details are those? Are those like small? Are they like small extremity type things, or are they?
So many things. So many things. So for instance, if you have a shape like this, this is going to show.
Is that like a, as in like a curve?
So you've got a curve like this, right? So you're going to have, it's going to be a big block of steel that the plastic's going to get pulled into. And there's going to be a top half, and there's going to be a bottom half. They're going to squeeze together. Plastic's going to be injected inside. It's going to cool, and then the two halves are going to come out. And in the middle is going to be your piece of plastic, right? So that's fine. But if you had a piece that did this, what you're going to have is the bit inside, the bit of metal inside, is going to get this stuck on it. It's not going to come out, right? It's called an undercut. We had so many undercuts, so many undercuts. So that's actually why this thing could never work. It's just impossible to make unless you're making out of like 100 pieces. So,
who was the most difficult to remake?
oh wow.
I imagine it's probably cast your mind.
I think it was actually Eagle.
I'm thinking it would have been Eagle.
It was Eagle.
You've got so much of that.
Yeah, because Eagle, the underside of Eagle has some really nice curves, but it also has some very thin parts. So if you don't do it, if you don't get it right, it's just going to break.
Sure.
So yeah, so there's undercuts. You can get things where the plastic will shrink because it's too thick. So you have to be really careful that the plastic has the same wall thickness all the way around. There's lots and lots of little things that nobody tells you about until you're trying to actually do it, and then you're totally at the whim of having a really good factory to kind of help you figure out how to fix it without changing the design.
So was that a big collaborative process with the manufacturers?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think anyone who's embarking on something like this, you need to find a good factory that will talk to you. What you don't want is for you to give them your design and for them just to change it around. Because they might take something like this, and because you know they may not be, they've probably got an eye for manufacturability over aesthetics. So they may take this and they may just shave off all the lovely corners and flatten out the edges.
And just ruin the gameplay.
Right, and then exactly, yeah. So finding a good partner factory is really important, which we have. Luckily, we have, and they've been a godsend. So this whole process has been very collaborative, back and forth, lots of changes, refinements.
So who are they? Whereabouts are they?
They are based in Guangdong, on mainland China, and we work with a sourcing company in Hong Kong who has links with the factory. So they put us in contact with the factory, and because there's a translation, there's like a language barrier.
Sure.
You need someone in between to kind of do the translation. Yeah, but
I suppose that's maybe a cool thing about designing the physical product as well, is even if there is a language barrier, right, that final product is kind of universal somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, one of the nicest things was seeing the engineers playing with the game. Couldn't understand the word they're saying, but they're still having fun, you know. And they understand that these things have to be designed to provoke those kind of reactions. So they're not trying to design it out. They know it's important to the product. Yeah, we're very lucky with that. Yeah. So
do you want to talk maybe through like the actual manufacturing step by step? Obviously, we've got the video that kind of goes through it.
Sure.
But was that a new world for you? Were you learning on like as you went with that, or was that sort of?
I studied product design. First time that I've put it in practice at that scale. I've only ever worked on making like 1s or 2s or 3s or something by hand usually. So yeah, it was nice to see it was really nice to see all of that in action. Actually, have you ever seen How It's Made? TV show?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's hypnotic. Definitely.
Yeah, it was exactly like that. Just incredible, and the speed that everyone works and with the attention to detail is fantastic. So, in a nutshell, take some plastic granules, put them in a big.
Specifically, I would imagine these colors.
Yeah,
over here.
Generally those colors. Yeah, put them in a big hopper, heat them up, inject them into 2 huge pieces of steel at super high pressures, really hot temperature. Take the parts out, and that gives you your parts.
Something that looks a bit like this. Yeah.
Exactly. So you have your halves. Clean them up, because they all come out with something called flash, which is just little bits of, you can't see that at all, little bits of nonsense plastic. Get rid of that. And then we have a really, really nice coating on the pieces, which is a rubberized spray. And the reason behind that is it gives certain pieces a lot more friction than others, which helps for the gameplay. So it allows you to pull off moves that you would never be able to do without it, because they just fall off. So once the pieces have been molded, then they go to another step where they're sprayed, and like really nice clean room, so you don't want to get any fingerprints or dust or anything like that. And then they're baked in an oven to make sure that the rubber spray doesn't chip off.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. From there, they go to a conveyor belt where the RFID tag, which is the scanning point, there's one there. That gets added in. And then the 2 parts get put together, maybe with a dab of glue. And then they go to what's called an ultrasonic welding point, which we have a nice video of.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So if anyone's got a car key, or any piece of anything where you've got 2 parts of plastic that are joined together, and it looks like there's glue around the outside, but it's a really tight joint, like a car key. It's ultrasonically welded, and the way that works is you have the 2 pieces of plastic held in a clamp, and then they're vibrated together really, really, really quickly in a fraction of a second. And that fraction of a second, it heats up the 2 pieces of plastic at the points they're touching so much that they fuse together, and then it becomes 1 piece of plastic. So it's way better than glue. It's not messy. It lasts longer.
Because I imagine with glue, then you sort of have to have another step of chipping it off and cleaning it.
Yeah, and then they come through and they have like big streak marks and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, so ultrasonic welding is great. It means that our pieces are much, much more robust than
as we found out.
Yeah, where's that?
It's on your desk. I'll see if I can go grab it.
Yeah, go grab it. So, story time. We, for reasons, yesterday we were Andrew and I were up. Up because that means a lot.
I don't think it's actually. I don't see it.
I think it's in a box.
You get me stuff. Where you put it?
We were taking some photos of the game. Probably a terrible idea. It was on a balcony. And we didn't realize, but one of the sharks fell off the balcony. It's about a 25-meter drop.
I don't actually know how we missed it, because what I think happened was there was the piece of balance box, and the shark was in front of it. And we were sort of positioning stuff, and then the box blew off and took the shark with it. Yeah. And then sort of we came to the end of it, and we were just like, "Where's the box lid?" And then we looked down, 25 meters below.
Where did you find it?
The shark. So the box. I don't know how detail we want to get, but basically there's a street here, and then there's like an alley or some sort of space in between. The box fell in there, and then the shark somehow was on the other side, like just on the street, like by some leaves.
Right, I missed it entirely.
No, I walked down and said, "This is ours."
But this, so this poor shark fell about 25 meters, so it's huge distance
onto concrete.
And bless him, all he had was a tiny little. This isn't it, but he had a tiny scuff right on the edge of his fins. And apart from that, he was perfect. So, caveat: please don't drop your pieces 25 meters.
But if you do,
you
will be minimal damage.
You might be okay. So ultrasonic welding. Then all of the pieces are then checked, and oh, I forgot this. So look, so each block has a scanning point here, which is called the glyph. This is a really interesting process. If anyone has Amiibos or Skylanders, or so I've got Thor here from Disney Infinity. Any of these characters, if they have, or any action figures or anything, if you look at their eyes are always sharper. They have sharper edges usually than the rest of the objects, and that's because they've been done with a process called pad printing. And that's a great process. That's really good. But again, we've got a picture of it up online, I think, a video. So it's basically a machine that picks up some ink, and it's got a big like rubber tennis ball, and it deforms over it, and just prints exactly what you want. And it does it with such perfect clarity, really crystal clear.
Requires a lot of sort of adjustment as you go as well. So the guys who are actually sort of printing it, they really have to be.
Well, you do that to set it up.
Yeah.
So they have so each piece has a little clamp, a jig it's called, that holds it exactly in place. So they'll maybe take half an hour to adjust it until it's exactly in the right position. And then clamp it there. And then they just go in and out and in and out. And all of our printing is done. So the platform, the plinth, this is printed on. So none of it's stickers or transfers. It's not going to come off. It's a really good process for us for getting those details on. So we have the pad printing, the rubber spray, the injection molding, the ultrasonic welding, and then because each piece has to have a specific bit of data.
Like ID,
ID, that's right, yeah. So then we have a process where all of the pieces are scanned and they're assigned the correct name. So it makes sure that this is a shark, and every shark is going to be a shark, and all of their weights are recorded, because that's really important.
And that was done with a bit of custom programming as well,
right? Yeah. Chris.
Do you want to chat it? Because you made the...
He's going to do that another time.
Oh, you do that. But yeah, so you made the actual sort of testing program and all that.
Say hi.
Hello. Hi, everyone. What am I saying? Nothing?
You're going to do it. You get to do hi, everyone.
Yeah, you'll get your own episode.
Yeah, so we had a piece of custom software that basically removes any chance that this is going to end up being a warthog accidentally. And then similar to that, and Chris will talk about this in his one, you've got the fact the plinth is full of electronics. So all of this needs really careful planning to make sure everything goes in right, to make sure it's calibrated properly. And then it ends up going in a box. The box is really nice process. Well, everything is a nice process. So all the boxes get made, everything gets packaged up. We have really nice, I want everybody to pay special attention to the inserts. The black inserts in the box.
Oh yeah.
They took way too much of my life to get them made. I'm sure everybody will appreciate it when they see
If you
it.
actually look at it, there's every piece and details.
Honestly, next time at Christmas, when you have like your box of milk tray, just throw the sweets out and just admire the quality of the box. It's an incredible thing. So yeah, we have that. Then everything gets put in the box. Everything gets cleaned before it goes in. Every piece gets looked at to make sure it's not scuffed or deformed or anything wrong. And then it gets shrink wrapped and crated up and then makes its way, shipped off. Yeah,
on a boat.
that's the process.
It's very, very cool. I mean,
Yeah.
again, there's so much care at each step of the process as well. It's like, there's a lot of love in these pieces.
Right.
All the way down.
Yeah, there is. Too much, probably. Yeah. But I wanted to also, let's, inspirations, I think. Do we have time for that real quick?
Well, I think we've gone over a bit.
Okay, 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes, probably.
Because this is quite nice. So I wanted to share 4 inspirations for the design of these that people can maybe go look at. So first of all,
I discovered, you showed me this guy last week, and I'm still, like, it's absolute mystery.
okay, so after we were at this stage, we wanted, when we were thinking about bringing in this kind of more approachable element, around about that time I went to Mexico for one of my best friend's weddings.
Oh, lovely.
So this gentleman here, I think it's a gentleman, this is called an alebrije. And this is a dream creature, a Mexican dream creature. It's made out of soft wood and it's hand painted. And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these. And this is a traditional art style in most parts of Mexico. Sure. And the really beautiful thing about these is the story goes that the guy who started this off, and I forget his name, he had a fever. And he had the most amazing psychedelic dream. Full of these alebrijes. And alebrije is a word that he made up. And he came to and he started to make these.
And they have different, there's all different kinds. That's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
one of
Yeah, exactly.
many, many, many.
Some of them are like recognizable creatures like horses with huge legs and that kind of thing. Some of them are made
like
up.
that.
So this little thing came up where he would go into the wilderness and take hallucinogenic substances and see these and then make them. And people started buying them. And I think even Frida Kahlo was kind of instrumental in them being kind of brought up. So now it's this kind of cottage industry. It's protected. So only certain, like champagne, only certain areas of Mexico make them. And they're just beautiful works of art. And so that the alebrijes were kind of an inspiration for the digital style as well as the physical stuff.
Yeah.
So inspiration number 2. These are okay. So this is called a key. It's by a company called Toy 2R, and it's a vinyl toy. The vinyl toy scene is really important to me. They're kind of, some people call them art toys or like underground toys, and it's kind of not as prominent as it was a few years back. I think Banksy was instrumental in kind of bringing them to the forefront.
Yeah.
But the whole thing about those is they're toys, but they're for collectors, and they're made in small quantities, and they have incredibly high attention to detail, bags of character, and also they're quite satirical sometimes as well.
Yeah.
So that's something that.
What was that from? Is that from a set or a different sort of?
This is one of the kind of key. It's called a key, QEE. So he's, yes, good point.
Yeah.
So a thing that came out of the world was this idea of DIY sets, which is something that we took on. So this, he's white, he's just pure white, and the idea is that you're supposed to decorate it yourself. And that sprung up a whole little sub-genre of artists that would decorate these and then sell them as work of art.
I think George has a couple of like the hand painted ones.
Oh, we do. Some of our friends do those. So this kind of thinking became. What have you got there? Oh yeah. So
This was by Angus Stick.
So we got some of our friends, and we've got a warthog somewhere as well, from my friend Aidan. And this is a really nice thing because it encourages people to look at the forms, make them their own, and see if they can make new shapes out of old shapes. And that became the beginnings of the DIY set that we had.
Yeah.
And it's definitely something we're looking to more. So perhaps the crab, wherever it is, maybe he could make a reappearance next year as a smaller run of things.
He's already got
yeah.
such a sort of cute face.
He does. He's a cute.
Gives him a lot of character.
Yeah, and then the last thing was I'm especially fond of Disney Infinity. If I had to choose that of all of the Toys to Life franchises, I think these guys are the ones who did their figures the nicest. The kind of slightly abstracted look that they have, like slightly cartoonish, really good attention to form and shape. I think of all of them, Disney kind of nailed it the nicest. And they're all hand sculpted as well. They're not done. The guy who did them does them. I think there's a team of 1 or 2 people. They hand sculpt them as well.
So
Which is lovely.
They sculpt one, and then that is.
I believe it gets digitized after they do that.
Very cool. Okay.
Yeah,
So
but I just love the fact that it's an old school method of making these things. Most people, myself included, they use computer terminals.
Yeah.
But it's just nice that that kind of form can be made in real world. Yeah, so there's a few things that went into making it.
Perfect.
Cool.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
That covers. I think we're done. That covers most of it.
Cool.
Let's have to clean up all these bits now.
Yeah, all right.
Great.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching, guys. Yeah, if you're interested, again, if you have any more detailed questions about this, give us a tweet, give us an email, comment on anything. We look at all of that stuff, and we're happy to chat about it. So, all right, great. Thanks, guys. See you.
Bye.